From Iran to Greenland, information is becoming a battlefield, shaped by power, pressure, and propaganda. I will discuss these topics with my fellow colleagues from different corners of the world. I'm Jarosław Włodarczyk. Welcome to Press Talks.
Muganwa Gonza. He's a Rwanda-based media consultant, press freedom advocate, and economist, a journalist with 20 years' experience covering East Africa and the Great Lakes region, and a former executive secretary of the Rwanda Journalists Association. Anna Gielewska. She's the editor-in-chief of vSquare.org, a Central European investigative outlet, and deputy editor-in-chief of the Polish investigative platform frontstory.pl. Ilya Ponomarenko. He's an independent author and a war and security reporter with the Kyiv Post, and wrote for the Kyiv Independent from 2016 to 2023.
Iran today is not just about protests, it's also about who controls information and who controls the story when internet goes down.
Iranians tap Musk's Starlink to skirt internet blackouts, sources say. Would Trump's threatened strikes help Iran's protesters or boost the regime? Iran warns US against attack as protest death toll reportedly soars. Iran protests updates. Tehran says will hit back at the US and Israel if attacked.
My first question to Anna, from your experience of work with disinformation, how the protests in Iran or war there is shaped all over the world and who is driving it?
So I would say, and that's not surprisingly, that there is a weird information war happening right now with different actors involved. And at the same time, there is this information vacuum. So it's really challenging to already draw who drives what kind of narrative and perspective. Because, of course, first we have the regime and its heavy propaganda machine. So the internet shutdown results in a situation where there is really challenging to get some reliable information from inside and to get it outside, from the protesters' perspectives. But apart from the regime narratives and regime controlling the story and shutting down internet, there is a surge of AI fakes, AI manipulated, deceptive videos that basically distort any kind of understanding, basic understanding. Content is reliable and showing the truth situation about Iran and to what extent facts are manipulated. So of course we have this. Actors and their goals. We have the technological tools that are adding to this distortive picture, and also foreign actors heavily involved and interested in Iran. Historically, there is Israel with its propaganda machine. There is the US that is also running its own narrative and perspective on Iran, and of course there is Russia, which already amplifies some messaging, some adds to distribution of content by the regime, and at the same time to this info fog, I would say, happening in Iran.
Thank you, and I want now ask Ilya, because you're reporting war against Ukraine from the very beginning, almost 4 years. And do you see any similarities between information blackouts in Iran now and what was happening at the beginning, especially at the beginning of war in Ukraine?
Mm-hmm. I must say that what we had back in 2022 during the full-scale invasion, in the beginning of it, it's exactly the opposite of what's happening right now in Iran in terms of media access and information. back then, when we were preparing for the invasion, we had like a very strict scenario for us journalists, and we were preparing for this for a scenario in which Russia can instigates a full darkness of information and cuts Ukraine of the world in terms of media and communications and everything. For instance, we as journalists, we had like backup channels with our foreign colleagues across the ocean. We had to buy, for instance, satellite phones because we expected to be in a complete darkness in terms of connections with the world. And we had plans to, at least by some way, to send any pieces of information on what was happening in case of the invasion. So we ended up, it didn't happen this way, and we ended up having pretty much all of the world media power with boots on the ground here in Ukraine, doing what media should do in a situation like this, like the full-scale invasion in Europe. And I must say that thanks to this failure to impose this informational blackout, journalism as a notion, honest journalism, media activity, it truly proved itself on this war, and it proved its value because over these years there are so many things that journalism should have covered, and it did it with so much courage, so much dedication. For instance, things like Bucha, the massacre of Bucha, where journalists recorded basically every second of this months-long crime.
Right, thank you. And Gonza, from African perspective, how these events in Iran are viewed across Africa, and is it rather a local conflict, especially for sub-Saharan Africa, or it's a warning as well about state power and information control?
It's not viewed as a local conflict, it's because they are elements that we share. For instance, yesterday there was an election in Uganda. I was there the day before, and the government announced they were shutting down the internet. In October last year in Tanzania, there was a general election which was disputed, and they shut down the internet. And even up to now, because of the killings that happened in the post-conflict that happened, journalists have not been able to cover exactly what happened because of information control, even though they put back the internet. The same thing happened in Kenya during Gen Z protests. So in some societies, in some of our countries, people now prepare early when they know there will be a protest or a general election that is contested on how they would manage information, because the state or the powerful interests are very keen on controlling information fraud, because information fraud determines how much especially the young people react to whatever decisions they are making. So the conflict in Iran is being closely followed in sub-Saharan Africa, in Africa mainly. But however, most of the information that people receive here, apart from on social media, is mainly by Western news agencies, which are the dominant, which supply our local media, because most of our countries or media houses don't have correspondents on the ground in the Middle East. And most of our people, of course, appreciate the fact that part of the information is propaganda driven. My country is hostile to the Iranian regime, and most people in Africa sympathize with the Iranian regime, largely because of its support for the Palestinian cause, which is very popular in sub-Saharan Africa. Though there is an appreciation that Israel and the United States, who are the main antagonists, are very powerful, and most countries try to align with them at the moment. And they are very careful, especially in official positions, they are very careful for not to issue any statements that could antagonize powerful countries, especially the United States and Europe.
I would like now to focus more on disinformation or limit of access to information particularly. And Anna, do you think in the time, or from your experience, when the access to information is limited, then the narratives or disinformation is easier to exposure, or it's more effective?
Well, I think it is more powerful, because when there is reliable information to counter, disinformation, it's when the disinformation spreads faster and winning easier, because no one knows what's the truth, what's the credible news, and I think like looking at like initial research or initial reports by disinformation researchers or experts in covering Iranian like information ecosystem, they're highlighting that it's already like challenging to verify the content posted on social media and coming from Iran, even at the very basic level. So, like in terms to the sources, but also like what is the AI part of it, and is it like actors or is it regime?
Thank you. And a short question on this topic also to Gonza. I would like to know how does it sound from the African perspective that someone is saying, supporting protesters of outside powers are saying that. How does it sound from African perspective?
It rather sounds like interference, of course, if you are on the part of the state or those who fight for sovereignty. But for many of the Africans, young people, they want support. They have been looking for it because there are many governments on the continent which are repressive or not responsive enough to the demands of the young people. So the young people, if they could get support from outside powers, they would appreciate it. But the problem is that our experience is that it is usually short term. It does not lead to sustainable change, and at times it is based on the interests of the powers that are claiming to support protesters.
Yeah, thank you. And now we will move to the second topic, which is very far from Iran. We will move to Greenland, but we will also focus on how disinformation and narratives are shaping the threats or destabilization of the situation around Greenland. And firstly, let's see what world media are talking.
Trump is risking a global catastrophe. His irrational fixation on Greenland could lead to widespread conflict. Senior Russian official says Greenland could vote to join Russia if Trump does not hurry. Simply not true. Nordic diplomats reject Trump's claims of Russian and Chinese vessels in Greenland's waters. Trump says US needs to own Greenland to prevent Russia and China from taking it.
Greenland, for many of us, may look very far away or remote, but this is happening, it's now in the center of the competition of the greatest powers worldwide. And I would like to ask Hannah about the narrations all over the world about Greenland, how they were shaped and framed. Is it a prize? Is it a real conflict? Is it domination of Arctic? How it's shaped by the biggest players on the information war?
I think I would say a bit of everything, depending on who is shaping this narrative. But certainly, out of sudden, Greenland has become the kind of disinformation crossfire space, and like various actors again try to somehow shape narrative, align with its interests, and of course Donald Trump and US perspective is now like using info ops playbook, I would say, and spreading narratives that Greenland is vulnerable and prone to Russia and China, and trying to like make it as an argument and reason for either buying or invading the place. Denmark, I think, after kind of a shock phase that was already like few months ago, when Denmark first officially accused the US of running an influence operation in Greenland to polarize the Greenland habitat and community living there, and basically to divide Greenland and Denmark. So that is like one of the picture. Then, of course, there is Russia that uses this opportunity as much as it can to divide between Denmark and Greenland, but also like to sow chaos and disseminates and amplifies some narratives attacking, of course, NATO, and showing how this conflicts erodes the NATO fundamentals. So and now there is EU kind of like realizing there is an increasing problem, and again there is quite weak news information ecosystem in Greenland that is, kind of small when it comes to media landscape, and there are not many journalists working there and being able to counter this narrative. So we have foreign agencies and Danish media, but still, it's like one of the very interesting, I would say, examples of this whole influence operations and disinformation ecosystem, not heavily researched yet. So I'm looking forward to some new research and new work in that field that is emerging.
Yeah, thank you. And Ilya, from the strategic point of view, President Medvedev, former president of Russia, Medvedev, was warning U.S. just recently. What is the message of the U.S. threats over Greenland and Denmark for Russia and or China?
Well, I would like to quote a U.S. official, anonymous U.S. official. I guess it was John Bolton, who once said that seeing what the U.S. is doing on the foreign arena, the people in the Kremlin are drinking vodka just from the bottle. Of course, what they are seeing, the message that they are getting is that the U.S. is getting dysfunctional as the leader of the free world, as the major actor behind the entire West and the entire free world. They are seeing that the United States is doing God knows what on foreign arena. The leadership is turned away by 180 degrees, and the moral compass is turned upside down. They are rolling out red carpets in front of their sworn enemies that built their entire regimes on destroying America as an entity and destroying freedom and the West. And they are openly spitting and threatening the most historically loyal allies. They are disrupting trust, disrupting these decades of Euro-Atlantic Union and alliances, and all the history behind this Western alliance and security system. And they are doing this for no apparent rational reason other than to caress someone's ego, to play tough guy for media in front of TV cameras and in front of voters. They are sowing discord and chaos. I'm not saying that, for instance, Russia in this growing chaos, they are not suffering from many things that happen. And for instance, we have the situation with Russian oil tankers that are getting seized by American forces. But in general, when it comes to dictatorships, to aggressors, chaos is the best breeding pool. Disinformation, disharmony, discord is the best environment that they can hope they are thriving in this and they are loving this in
Yeah.
general. This is exactly what they wanted, to break this harmony of the power of the West.
Right. And Gonza, from your perspective, are we somehow normalizing the power politics?
Yes, we are also normalizing the fact that people in power can talk obvious falsehoods and they are respected and covered by the media as if they are true. Because the justification of seeking to take over Greenland is perplexing. What the United States is saying. And it defeats all the conventions that had existed in the post-World War era of respecting sovereignty, of negotiating trade deals, but not threatening violence. But this means also that it could allow other powerful forces, especially in the global south, also utilize if the rules-based order has collapsed, to also utilize the opportunities to change borders. But that could lead to more conflict. Yes, it means that the most powerful gets what they want, and the weak either have to submit or, or figure a way of resistance, which is confusing a lot of people in the global south, since it has suffered from many what we may have called neocolonialism, or some sort of exploitation from the powerful countries of the world. It's very hard now to pick a side because of merging powers. There are multiple powers all over the place. But also, as far as information is concerned, one of the things that President Trump had brought to the table is that he was very clear. Many times he's very clear on what he wants. Like in Venezuela, he says very clear that he's after oil. He is mediating in the conflict between Rwanda and the Congo, and he's very clear that he has been given minerals. That is the motivation, which is which is different from the previous administrations, which would use issues like democracy, bringing human rights, and so on. Yet they were exactly interested in the resources. So maybe the system has changed. It's time to compete for resources openly, but where we leave weaker countries which don't have the push to compete. But it could become much more destabilizing. It's very hard for the public to know which information is accurate because there's limited fact checking. Most media houses covering these conflicts, especially in this part of the world, don't do any fact checking. They take what is communicated by the big powers as if it is accurate and give it to the audiences.
From Iran to Greenland, as we've heard, information became a weapon and journalism became a frontline. That's all for today Press Talks. Thank you very much for watching. Big thank you to my fellow colleagues from Warsaw, Ukraine, Kiev, and from Kigali, Rwanda. I'm Jarosław Włodarczyk. Stay well. See you next time. Goodbye.